to help too, because like he may have read further than I have. So, all right. So I'm trying to think. Oh, wait, did we? There we go. Like he may have read further. All right. So here at 316, we move on to the specification of the individual body, which is the particularization. So at this point, we kind of start returning to bodies determining themselves as themselves with respect to an other in differentiation, which makes sense again, because we're going through the essentials. Um, so I guess I'll read here first. The process of shaping the space determining individualization of mechanism passes over into physical specification. In itself, the individual body is a physical totality. This is to be posited in the body in the form of difference, but as difference determined and held in the individuality. The body is subject of these determinations contains them as properties or predicates, but in such manner that they are at the same time relationship toward their unbound universal elements, form processes with them, like like the senses and other relationships that only exist because they're determined by another. It is their immediate, not as yet positive specification. The latter constitutes the chemical process in which they are not yet taken back into individuality, so it's still external relationship, are not the real totality of the processes, but only relations with those elements. The differentiation of these determinations is that their elements, the logical determination, has been indicated in their sphere. So yeah, we do have a return to where we were uh in the universalization or the first third of the book. Yeah, the universal individuality, but in how they relate the body to others. Ooh, I think here we got a little bit of a history lesson. Uh, the general idea can be represented that each body consists of four elements, or contains mercury, fluid, sulfur, oil, salt. While it's easy to refute them if such names want to understand the particular empirical substances, he still points to the metaphysical conception. Well, there it is. The fact must not, however, be overlooked at the much more essential significance of these names that they contain an expression, the determinations of the notion. How there should be wonder at the eminence with which thought which was still unfree perceived and held fast was only its peculiar nature and universal significance in its centrist particular existences. It is thus also pointless to refute these conceptions empirically. Right. It's just assigning the metaphysical considerations to known empirical things at the time that may or may not be actual from an empirical perspective. Since we did have what fire, wind, water, and earth before, but not only metaphysically, not necessarily as literally as, the Greeks.
Yeah.
Secondly, such a mode of conception and determination, since it has its source in the driving energy of reason, which does not become lost or so, in the tangled interplay of sense phenomena, is raised far above the mere investigation and chaotic counting of the properties of bodies, which I feel he also talked about more back when we got the properties in logic as well.
Also in phenomenology, like if you read here what you just read,
Yeah.
um, the the idea of getting
Oh, yeah.
forgetful in the interplay of sense phenomena, like this is basically him uh, talking about how um, sorry if I'm halting here.
No, not.
How the vulgar materialist philosophical worldview that's basically behind him in history. Uh, well, no, is probably present at the same time. Um, does it appears to be concrete and substantial, but the more you try to like categorize off of it, the more slippery all of your categories are. And that's the point he made in the phenomenology with sense certainty. Um,
Perception and even
yeah,
force.
yeah, exactly.
Well, I just had to look up so I keep forgetting what the third one was because I literally had this in arm's reach. So,
Yeah, yeah, same. I need to restart it because um, I really want to read it all the way through, like in detail, and
oh,
I just felt allergic to it for a while just because of how Alex handled it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to put this down and wait a couple months before re-engaging because, god damn.
think I want to kind of still kind of do that. Maybe not as fast, but still a broader overview. So I have something, some sort of, foundation or sort of skeleton to attach the detail onto. Because, of
Yeah,
course,
Doug's method was to go ahead and watch the those 30-minute YouTube videos that you were showing me last
mhm.
year, and he's up to laws is where he said he is. So he's been watching all of those. So if you ever want to pick his brain about those, if you haven't watched them yourself, I've tried to talk to him about phenomenology, and he's just sort of given me the "yeah, it's going great" line, like he doesn't want to talk about it. Like I'm like, okay, whatever. I mean, he's probably busy with half a dozen things anyway. He's teaching now,
Yeah.
so
Yep.
um, not to mention this. I got this today.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I ordered it as soon as it came out, and I had to pay for it in pounds, but it came really, really fast. I was like, "Hey, it's here!" You
Oh,
know?
Doug's book.
Yeah, Doug's new book in
I
which
just ordered that the other day, so
yeah,
should
in
be
which
getting it
he
Saturday,
talks.
I think.
I mean, he talks about the trials, but he also talks about Lucerdo. He talks about Ludo Martins, who I don't really know who that is. Grover Furr and Bill Bland. I don't know. And basically just talks about their reasoning and how they justify believing the trials, so on and so forth. And that the most sophisticated, of course, was um, uh, Lucerdo, who is passed on.
Yeah.
Um, Grover Fur is the most crude. Actually, no, Grover Fur is not the most crude, although his reasoning is basically circular. The most crude, I think, is Bill Bland, who basically is as close, I think, as close you can get to a treating Stalinism like a religion, is what he says. So yeah,
Go.
it's interesting stuff. Hmm. Yeah, Stalinism is religion. Basically, whatever Stalin said, God, it's honest truth. Yeah. I'm already into
Someone
the
said
second
it, he
chapter. It's
believes it.
great. What's that?
Dylan said it, he believes it.
Yep.
The end of it.
Anyway, sorry.
No,
Yeah,
it's
go on.
fine. In this searching is countered tourists and praiseworthy that have yet another particular discovery. Yeah, that's what you're saying. Instead of tracing back multi particulars to the universal and the notion, recognizing the latter in them. Yeah, it's just sort of the slipperiness of the categories, right?
Yeah.
Also, I can't believe I forgot to. I was waiting to pre-order Doug's book, and then I forgot to do it, and now I see it's ready to purchase.
Oh,
Well, I'll send you the link later.
Oh, I got it. It's on
Oh, you
my.
got it.
Yeah.
One thing I appreciate about this book, and I really need to do like a notation dive through this one, is that so in this book. he really has to go out of his way to differentiate reason and its products from the material sensory world because we're dealing with a philosophy of nature. And so um I really feel like reading this is like reading Capital Volume 2 or 3, where he constantly refers back to Volume 1, but he does so in such a way that he has to talk about both the categories as well as the material uh, um, phenomena of actual capital like structures, right? And so the um, what do I want to say? What's in the real world and what's in our heads is more starkly visible, whereas in phenomenology and logic, it's really difficult to um it's much, but this really like throws it into sharp relief. And I know I've said this before on the channel a lot previously, but um after reading this book carefully, going back to phenomenology and the logic will probably be a lot easier because you could simply look through the notations and say, okay, well, this is, you know, this is an essential category, and it maps back to this, and and some of what's in here can illuminate what's in the other books better. You know,
Yeah.
just like we were talking about there. Uh, the has its source, yeah. Mode of conception has its source in the driving energy of reason, right? And so he's talking about thought organizing categories of in order to order the real world versus sense phenomena that is sort of stacked up like cordwood as you experience them or as is listed out in a textbook, so on and so forth, in a sort of vulgar materialist way. Okay.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
also just what I think because we are having to do that kind of separate empirical and metaphysical here.
Yeah.
It is does kind of have to mirror the differentiation of essence in general too, which kind of is that kind of self
Yes.
similarity we starting to see here. But logic itself was one thing, and now it's kind of splitting out to two ends, which I wonder how that comes back together in mind
Well, well,
as through man
yeah.
itself, right?
No, yeah, no, I know what you mean,
Okay.
but remember, logic an organizing as an organizing principle, uh if it's done correctly, as it should be, um affects both,
Yeah.
equally. And if it doesn't, you have to ask yourself, where did you go wrong in your categorization? And so, so on and so forth.
You are in the essence of essence. I just realized that because it's because we're having to do the differentiation between empirical and metaphysical, which
Yeah.
relate to each other, but also we're in the section that things are only defined by the other.
Yeah.
But I feel like I could keep track of this a lot better. So I think before I want to go kind of dive into the section, I do want to skip because this really does set up the rest of the section.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, so let me see if I go up a little bit more. Talk basically talking about the differences between the physical shapes going on. So the division in the following paragraphs is divided thus as first relation of the individual body to light. Secondly, the different relation as such smell and taste. Because light, I'm trying to think of trying to lay that back. And thirdly, differences as such between two total bodies, which electricity makes sense because don't know if he meant kind of an proto metaphysical conception that ends up being filled by protons and electrons, but yeah, it's kind of just I know where we're this is just to kind of show the path that we are going as he always does.
Yeah.
Again, I did highlight a few things. Let me see if I Yeah, I think it's just at this point in time, kind of comparing like we have the properties we had before, but here in a more empirical sense, because obviously we're doing with nature at this point.
Mm,
What is so? Yeah, so we start again with the abstract formal form under, the crystal matter that ends up needing to determine itself. We have reconstruction, physical elements of individuality, individual body, element of earth is the unity of the four elements, air, light, fire, and water. Oh, that's five elements. And the mode in which they exist constitutes specification of individuality. So yeah, we're relating back to the initial universal individuality. Light being light corresponds to air. Okay, so that's right. In contrast, darkness of body is individualized specific obscuration, its color. You know, light being equals all colors, but then it splits into its individual components.
yeah.
Fire is a moment of the individual body. The smell is its consumption. Obviously, not the same thing as oxidation because that's chemical, but oh god, it is. Smell and its an unsuspected process of consumption or how it relates to its kind of dissolution within the air. And then what we have here is sort of light going through it, and then we have its oxid. Oh, now I got that wrong, but oxidation being its chemical sense. That's interesting. Water is in kind of how is neutrality and is sort of how certain tastes are transmitted. Okay. Relationship to taste. All those properties belong to an individual body. Oh, okay. And of course, that's right. He brings this up because this is now important and how it actually relates to the other body. So in the first instance, again, we're dealing with color. So the property of the material substance of importance is its pigment. Is is still is because individuality is still, but therefore the property is also material substance. It becomes individuality. It's still powerless to prevent it. That the properties also become free. The cohesive force of life is not yet present, and because it's organic sphere, as particular properties also have the general significance of keeping up their connection with their source of origin. I'm just trying to remember the essence having to relate back to itself, like being its
Yes.
own other. Color chemistry has a relation to light and is bleached by it. And then odor is air, taste is water. Yeah, the particular I don't remember this part. Okay, what I care about is further down anyway. So in particular, very names of odor and taste, which are also under discussion, call to mind sensation. Again, I guess relationship here, since they do not merely denote physical properties, but also denote subjectivity because it's involved our specific taste, because we have to taste it to be able to, sense it.
Yeah.
Consequently, these qualities within the sphere of individuality mentioned must also be made of their connection with the senses. Here, we must first ask why is there the relation to bodies to subjective sense originates, and secondly, what objective properties correspond to our five senses. The properties mentioned, color, order, and taste are only three, thus we have three senses of sight, smell, and taste. Since hearing and touch do not appear here, the question at once arises, where is the place of objective properties corresponding to these other two senses? All right.
Hmm.
Alpha, I think here. Don't know if that's fair. Yeah, whatever. Not my system. So for the first question, again, like where the senses originate, The individual shape was originally shut in with itself, being its own, complete in itself, no longer involved with difference with another. Therefore, no practical relation to another. Determinations of cohesion are not different to another, but only in the relation to another. Shape, on the contrary, is indifferent to this relation. It can be treated mechanically, but since shape is self-relating, the relation of an other to it is not necessary, but only contingent. This relation of an other to it be called a theoretical relation, but only sentient natures and at a higher level, only thinking ones have this relation to anything.
Mm.
But the theoretical consists more precisely in this that a sentient being and being related to the other is at the same time related to self.
One or two. Couple.
Two individual bodies, crystals, for example, likewise,
Yeah.
let each other exist in freedom, but only because they have no relationship with each other. To have such relation that they would have to be chemically determined through the medium of water. Otherwise, it's only a third, myself, who determines them by comparison. Yeah, so this theoretical relation then relies solely on the absence of any relation between them. So it requires someone with sense to be able to determine a difference between them. The true theoretical relation exists only when there's an actual relation between two sides, yet where each side is free in the face of the other is just such a relationship as sensation stands to its object. Okay, I gotta keep this. Oh my gosh. And right. All right. Exists in relation to each other. In other words, physical is how it exists for, and since it once more exhibits itself in determinate forms, to which we pass on here, it exists in distinct mode sensation for the senses. It is for this reason, then, that here, in dealing with the formative process, we have noted the relation to the senses, though we don't need, since it does not belong to the sphere of physics.
Mm.
So senses, since it's, yes, see, what was it here? Since it once more exhibits itself in the determinate forms, it exists distinct modes of sensation for the senses. I don't remember what it.
I'm interested in this sentence. It says that this theoretical relation then rests solely on the absence of any relation between them. And since this is alpha, or is it alpha?
Yeah, we're
alpha.
still in alpha. We're talking about where sensation. Yeah.
Yeah. It reminds me of what the definition of nature, in comparison to logic is, which is that everything is external to itself. External against itself at first. And so there's basically never mind. True theoretical relation only exists only where there is an actual relation between the two sides, yet where each side is free in the face of the other. It is in such a relationship that sensation stands to its object. Yeah.
Yeah, since
Yeah.
we're not dealing with like chemical reaction stuff, the only way that this sort of relationship exists is through a subjective sense.
Yeah.
And so, but we're also, since we're not dealing with that side of this and in this aspect of physics, we're only going to deal with the initial properties that lead to the senses, what the senses pick up.
Yeah.
Yet again, I can now think that through. It's like, yeah, we're basically not being reductionists, but we're just acknowledging we're not to the point where the other side becomes is being looked at.
Right. We're not to that point yet. Which is fine. That's where we're supposed to be.
I'm gonna take a quick look. 358, is that even? Oh, I think 358 literally is close to the end of the book. Yeah.
Mm.
We're all the way in the theoretical process, 357A. 258. Yeah, we're already into
Well,
into organics at that point.
well, 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 yeah.
Okay.
With the census. Mm-hmm.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense because what was it? We started off with the kind of thing that I guess the proper not the properties, but kind of the the transmission of these properties themselves, light, air, water. Then we're doing with the initial properties itself, and then we'll do with the being that senses them.
Mm-hmm.
Which, that's a syllogism. Which is, I think, what I was highlighting here too, because he says again the two extremes. But we've already come across sensuous properties corresponding to the other senses. Shape through mechanical of individuality is thus feeling in general, which includes heat.
Yeah.
Although relationship is more theoretical than it is to shape as such, since we only feel the latter and so far it offers us resistance. Because there's not really a solid shape to it. That's already is a practical relation, for one side will not leave the other as it is. One has to press, touch, whereas with heat there is still no resistance. Hearing, we had a connection to sound. Yes, we already did that already, which is mechanically conditioned individuality. A sense of hearing, therefore, the infinite form realized to the real material aspect is so like elements only external related. Yeah, I almost feel like we're just. I don't want to repeat too much, but it's only external related to matter. It's only a fleeting form of mechanical materiality and is therefore vanishing without enduring existence. Hearing's opposite is touch. The sense of totality of mechanism is ideal manifestation. Yeah, that's right. Hearing's opposite is touch, and the sense of total of mechanism in its ideal manifestation. Its objective, feature, gravity, shape, which not yet specify itself. These two extremes, the ideal sense of hearing and the real sense of touch, were therefore contained in the total shape. The differences of shape are confined to the three other senses.
Hmm.
So we already had. So hearing is ideal, but singular. Touch is real material, and then everything else is as identity. And then the other things are involved are based off of difference,
Mm.
which would be sight, smell, and taste. Yeah, taste definitely makes sense. Sight, we're about to get into because of light, and then odor. Okay, yeah, that's right. Specific properties of visual shape are not themselves shape, but space manifestations. Essentially preserved in their being for another. This marks the beginning of the end for the pure indifference of the theoretical relation. The other to which these qualities are related in universal nature or elements, not as a neutral body. On this relationship process and differentiation is founded, which can, however, only be abstract. Since, however, the physical body is not merely one particular difference, is not merely separated to these qualities, but it's a totality of these differences. This separation is only an internal distinction of its properties in which it remains a single whole. In this way, we have differentiated body in general, and this itself as a totality now also enters relationship with other similar differentiated bodies. Difference of these total shapes is an outwardly mechanical relationship since they have to remain what they are while their self-maintenance remains undissolved. Right? This expression of enduring different things is electricity, which is therefore at the same time a superficial process of this body against the elements. Thus, on the one hand, we have particular differences, on the other hand, differences as such as a totality.
Yeah.
Just how things relate to each other, rather than just being what they are. which will be, again, light through sight, smell, and taste. Secondly, and thirdly would be the total difference between two bodies. We're talking about earlier. Is light individual as such, which is dissolvable relationship, it should, on the contrary, preserve itself as such. What we are here considers only properties. Evolution of shape won't happen.
Another day, honey.
Julian
And
wants
then-
pajamas
What
on.
here, properties will be
Nay.
exhibited as
Time for
specific
bed,
sorts
honey.
of matter. Materialized color and pigment no longer belong to the individual as a total shape. It is separated off by chemical action. Yeah, so eventually these properties themselves are not, static. It's a property existing apart from association. Can its true be also called individual totality in the case of metal? However, only individual, not neutral body. In the chemical process, then, we shall further see such bodies to be merely formal, abstract totalities. These specifications are, in the first instance, arguing through the notion they only, formal. They have only implicit and immediate existence, as shape has too. They are afterwards reposited by an actual chemical process, and is there too we first discover the conditions of their existence, well, those of shape. Really going forward here. So, of course, here, relation of light. First determination is self-identical selfhood. Abstract self-manifestation of itself as an indeterminate simple individuality. Light, but shape as such is not luminous, whereas property is a relationship to light. In the first example, A, body of pure crystal, is a perfect homogeneity of neutrally existing inner individualization. It's transparent as the medium for light. The inner lack of cohesion in air stands to its transparency, as does in the concrete body the homogeneity of the coherent crystallized shape. I'm trying to think at this point, because it's formal version of relationship to light, it has none. It's indifferent.
Yeah.
So it allows light through. The body thus is unspecified, as much in appearance opaque, translucent, etc. But transparency is its immediate first determination as crystal, right? Which is not further, physical homogeneity is not further specified or deepened within itself. And as light and darkness are very possibilities in the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
A way of referring to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is. I think I was trying to go through a bit. Okay, I think I'll have to go through it. Shape.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. Shape is still the quiescent individuality existing in a state of mechanical and chemical neutrality, because though it does not possess the latter at every point, as does shape in its completeness. Shape, as a pure form by which matter is completely determined and pervaded, is therein only identical with self and dominates matter at every point. Oh yeah, so it's like all just, it's undifferentiated. So yeah, right. This is the first determination of shape and thought. Now, since this identity with self is matter is physical, but light represents this abstract physical identity within self, the first specification of shape is its relationship to light, which, however, in virtue of this identity, it has within itself. This relationship, though, which shape posits itself for an other, is strictly theoretical, not practical. It is rather a wholly ideal relationship. The identity which is no longer, as in gravity, posits a mere urge, but which in light has become free, the identity now posits a terrestrial individuality, is the dawning of light aspect in shape itself. Which in shape is still not an absolutely free, but a determinate individuality. The terrestrial specification of its universality is not yet an inner relation of the individual to its own universality. It is only a sentient creature which possesses the universal of its determinants as a universal within itself. i.e., is a universal for itself. I mean, only the organism, therefore, so shows up against its other that its universality falls within itself. Yeah, looking at the looking at the sensing end of this relationship,
Yeah.
becomes full. Here on the okay, I would now that I'm starting to see this, like, oh, he's just referring to down the line, but we're not there yet in each of these.
Yeah.
It makes this a lot easier. Here, on the contrary, the universal of this individual is still qua element and other, something external to the individual body. The earth, no doubt, taken only as the universal individual, has a relation to the sun, but a relation which is wholly abstract, whereas the individual body has at least a real relation to light. For though, yeah, so the earth in the initial section as a universal individual has a relationship in terms of gravity, but here it has a real relation to the sun as the sun being a source of light illuminating the earth. For thus the individual body is in the first place dark, since this generally is the determination of abstract independently existing matter, yet this abstract darkness is overcome by the individualization of matter through its pervasive form. The particular modifications of this relationship to light are then the colors, which must also therefore be mentioned here. As on the one hand, they belong to the real individual body, so too, on the other hand, they merely hover outside the individuality of bodies. Shadowy entities generally which have no objective material existence can as yet be ascribed mere semblances resting simply on a relation between light and its incorporeal darkness, in short, a spectrum. Colors are thus in part quite subjective, conjured up by the eye, an action produced by a brightness or darkness in the eye, and a modification of their relation. But external brightness is naturally also requisite. And I don't think this is accurate now, but Schultz ascribed a particular brightness to the phosphorus in our eyes, so that it is often hard to say whether the brightness and darkness and the relation between them lie in us or not. I know it's definitely not phosphorus how we actually see, but
Right.
the point here, so they didn't know how the three cones worked here yet. Yeah, and it's because it's a combination of three different cones that involve the brightness and darkness together that creates color as we see it.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. It's just it's just like radio waves because radio waves is like
Yeah.
the differences between three different signals at different frequencies tell you the full color spectrum. At least as we see it. Okay. First, we now have to consider the relationship of individualized matter to light. First, as the identity to which nothing is opposed, which is not yet posited as different from another determination. So formal general transparency as always, formal. Secondly, we have this identity as specified with relation to an other, the comparison of two transparent media. Refraction, okay, I saw that. Next paragraph, where the medium is not purely transparent but specifically determined. Or do you have color as a property? Metallic body, metallically neutral, but not chemically so.
Before I existed in the world.
It's almost like it's metallic in the astronomical sense, where it's basically just not hydrogen and helium. It's almost had that felt. It just sort of means it's material. It's hard.
Or was that on
Yeah.
First, but in a not brittle way. First, we regard to transparency, opacity, and darkness belong to the abstract. Oh, yeah. I think I had a commentary earlier when he was talking about how shadows are also mere symbols resist simply on the relation between light and incorporeal darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Makes me kind of reminder of the fact that there's a reason shadows can move faster than light because they're not physically real. They're just semblances.
Ask you to do. Finish.
So, so transparency, darkness belong to the abstract individuality, to the element of earth, air, water, flame, on account of their universality and neutrality, are transparent, not dark or opaque. Pure shape has likewise overcome darkness. This abstract, brittle, unrevealed being for self of individual matter, the non-manifestation of itself, has therefore made itself transparent. Simply because it's brought itself back to the neutrality and uniformity, which is a relation to light. Okay. It is, I mean, obviously we know it's not physically real, but it is like that shape for, like you're talking about, maybe be interesting to kind of see that same visualization here where it keeps referring to yet a morphing into a net new notion that is physically different in empirical reality. Because now I have a clear sphere in my brain. Material individuality is an inward darkening since it shuts itself off from ideal manifestation to another. But the individual form its totality has pervaded its matter and this thereby entered into manifestation and advances to this ideality of definite being, Dasein. Self-materialization is the explicational form, the positing of a being here for another, but so that thus is at the same time held in individual unity. It is for this reason that the body of brittleness, the moon, is not transparent, whereas the comet is so. Because the comet's more airy, while the moon's more I'm trying to remember what that was. Since this transparency is formal, the crystal has in it common with the intrinsically shapeless elements of air and water. The transparency of the crystal is, in keeping with its origin, also different from those elements that are transparent since they have not yet attained to immanent individuality, to the element of earth of obscuration. Bodies possessing shape are, it is true, not themselves light since they are individual matter, but since point-like self of individuality, as the inner fashioner is unhindered, it no longer meets with anything alien in its dark matter. Thus, being within self, which has passed completely into the developed totality of the form, is here brought to the homogeneous sameness of matter. The form, as free and unrestricted, embracing both the whole and single parts, is transparency. All the single parts are made quite like this whole and are, for that very reason, made quite like each other, and are separated from each other in mechanical interpenetration. The identity of the crystal is its perfect mechanical unity as indifference, and its chemical unity as neutrality, are which constitute its transparency. Now, though the identity does not itself shine, it is so much akin to light, it can almost reach the state of shining. It is the crystal to which light has given birth. Light is the soul of this being within self, where its ray mass is completely dissolved. Not sure what that means. Ray mass. The archetypal crystal is the diamond of earth in which every eye rejoices, recognizing, the holotype, okay, recognizing it as the firstborn son of light and gravity. Light is the abstract, perfect free identity. Air, the elemental identity. The subordinate identity is passivity of light, and this is the transparency of the crystal. Metal, on the other hand, is opaque, since it is the individual. In it, the individual is concentrated for being for self through a highly specific gravity. Which, later on. Okay, interesting. Now we're going to talk about. Okay, so now I understand what you can see about metal here at 320. It's what this tells me. To be transparent, the crystal must be free from an earthly flaw, otherwise it is simply brittle. A transparent body can further be rendered opaque without chemical action simply by mechanical alteration. which we see familiar phenomenon when the body is merely divided into separate parts. Like ice cracking starts to become more and more opaque. Powdered glass, for instance, and water made into a foam are opaque. This is because their mechanical indifference and homogeneity have been removed. What was formerly a mechanical continuum has been disrupted and given a form of separate being for self. Even ice is less transparent than water, and when crushed is quite opaque. White is produced when the continuity parts of the transparent body is destroyed, and they are converted into plurality, such as snow, and only then as white does white exist for us and excite our eyes. Right? Goethe says the contingently, in this example, mechanically opaque state of the wholly transparent body could be called white. The familiar, simple minerals are white in their pure state, but become transparent through natural crystallization. Thus, lime and silica are opaque. They have a metallic base, which, however, has gone over into opposition and difference, and has consequently become a neutral substance. There are therefore chemically neutral substances which are opaque, but they are, for that very reason, not perfectly neutral, i.e., they is a residual principle in them which has not entered in relation with any other. But when we see silica crystallize without acid in rock crystal, or clay in mica, or magnesia in talc or lime, and of course in carbonic acid, we have transparency. This phenomenon of a ready passage from transparency into opacity is frequent. A certain stone, hydrophane, is opaque, saturated with water becomes transparent. Water renders it neutral and so removes its discreteness. Borax, too, when dipped in olive oil, becomes perfectly transparent. The parts, therefore, are arranged in simply continuous fashion, which oh, it's on a borate of soda. Lose their transparency result, but they become perfectly transparent if dipped in olive oil, since this levels their unevenness. Yeah, it fills in the gap in between the substances, which allows uh light to it has the same index of refraction and fills up the same space as borax. Okay, that makes sense. That's why sometimes what is it? There's like you can do this, yeah, you can do the same thing with kitchen oil where you put like a glass uh stir into a glass like a beaker full of olive oil of oil, and then just the glass rod just disappears in the oil. Same thing. Since when is chemically neutral tends toward the transparent, metallic crystals also, such as not pure metals but metallic salts, become translucent by virtue of their neutrality. There are also color transparent bodies, precious stones. They're also not perfectly transparent simply because of this metallic principle. Yeah, like rubies and stuff, to which they owe their color is neutralized but not wholly overcome. Yet again, this all these all these additions make the kind of metaphysical, which sounds kind of out there, suddenly seem completely grounded.
Yeah, and I'm getting the sense that that's the point.
Yeah,
Even if the science is changed, the the point is to illuminate the conceptual,
right.
which if it follows the logic correctly isn't going to change or only needs tweaked a little
It's
bit.
using the empirical, which is kind of how he's associating it as also pedagogical with the metaphysical side.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just like,
And
oh, okay,
so and
the
so
same thing.
even if you're talking about, the opacity or not of
Yeah,
various objects, yeah, the point isn't so much whether, you know, it's it's not it's not mystifying um, material processes so much as illuminating metaphysical ones. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
No, I think it makes sense. We're starting with the most formal, indifferent form of shape, indifferent through visual, which is just clear.
yeah.
So it's not differentiated yet.
Can we
Mhm.
can we cut this short and start at 318 next time?
Yeah,
And
no
then
problem. I was figure we're close to the end anyways. So, or it's
yeah.
almost 9 your time.
Ooh, look at that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was talking with Jim on earlier. Like, oh, there's definitely teacher Hegel right here.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
The angle ARS. Like, oh, hey, I'm back in college.
Yep.
Like, that's actual like a textbook image.
So why don't we go up to, let's not get too, why don't we go up to 320? So where we are to 320, wherever we were just
And
at.
if I get further, that's by choice.
Yeah, 318 to 320. 318, 319. And if we get further, then that's great too. Because
185. Go ahead.
yeah, you're fine. 185 to
194. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's good. All right, comrades. It's good talking to you. I got to run.
Yeah, that seems to happen every night for you, man.
Yep. All right, take it easy. Thanks so much.
Yep.
It's